Imagine turning on your computer in 2026 and knowing with absolute certainty that every single thing on your system is exactly how you designed it, that nothing has changed behind your back, that updates can never break your workflow, and that if something ever does go wrong, you can rewind your entire operating system, like a YouTube video, and keep working as if nothing happened. That idea sounds futuristic, maybe even unrealistic, but it has been real for years, and in 2026 it has quietly matured into one of the most powerful, flexible, and misunderstood operating systems ever created. This is NixOS, and chances are you have heard the name but never seriously considered using it. Today we are going to fix that by breaking down what NixOS actually is, why it matters more than ever in 2026, how it works in plain language, and why many developers, sysadmins, and power users quietly believe it is the endgame of Linux operating systems. To understand NixOS, you first need to understand the problem it was created to solve. Traditional Linux distributions, whether it is Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch, or Debian, all share a similar model. You install packages using a package manager. Those packages place files all over your system, configurations live in various directories, and over time your system becomes a unique snowflake that even you cannot fully reproduce. Two machines running the same distro with the same packages installed rarely behave in exactly the same way. Updates can break things unexpectedly. Removing software does not always clean everything. Configuration drift slowly creeps in, especially on systems that are used for real work. In 2026, this problem is even bigger because systems are more complex than ever, development stacks are massive, and people expect reliability across laptops, desktops, servers, and cloud environments. NixOS takes a radically different approach. Instead of treating the operating system as something you manually tweak over time, NixOS treats the entire system as code. Everything, from your bootloader to your desktop environment, from installed packages to system services, is described declaratively in configuration files. You do not tell the system how to change itself step by step. You describe what you want the final system to look like, and NixOS builds it for you. This idea alone already separates NixOS from almost every other Linux distribution, but it goes much deeper than that. At the heart of NixOS is the Nix Package Manager, which by 2026 has become one of the most advanced software management systems in existence. Unlike traditional package managers that install files directly into shared system directories, Nix installs every package into its own isolated directory inside a central store. Each package is stored with a unique hash that represents not only the package itself, but also all of its dependencies and build options. This means that two versions of the same software, built with different settings, can exist on the same system at the same time without conflict. It also means that installing or upgrading software can never overwrite or break existing software, because everything lives in its own immutable location. This design leads to one of the most famous features of NixOS: atomic upgrades and rollbacks. When you update your system in NixOS, it does not modify your existing system in place. Instead, it builds a new version of the entire system configuration alongside the old one. Only when the new system is fully built and ready does it become active. If something goes wrong, you can simply reboot and select the previous system generation from the boot menu. In 2026, this feels almost magical compared to traditional distros, where a broken update can mean hours of troubleshooting or even a full reinstall. With NixOS, broken updates are an inconvenience, not a disaster. Another key idea behind NixOS is reproducibility. In a world where developers work across multiple machines, containers, and cloud servers, reproducibility is everything. NixOS allows you to define your entire system in a single configuration, or a small set of files that can be used to recreate the exact same environment anywhere. If you hand your NixOS configuration to another person in another country, they can build a system that behaves exactly like yours, down to the smallest dependency. In 2026, when remote work and distributed teams are the norm, this is not just a nice feature, it is a serious advantage. But NixOS is not just about servers and developers. Over the years, it has evolved into a surprisingly capable desktop operating system. In 2026, running a full graphical desktop on NixOS is smoother and more polished than ever before. Popular desktop environments like GNOME, KDE Plasma, and lightweight window managers are all first-class citizens. Hardware support has improved massively, and many of the pain points that used to scare desktop users away have been addressed. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPUs, printers, and audio all work far more reliably now, thanks to improved modules and better defaults. That said, NixOS still has a reputation for being difficult, and that reputation is not entirely undeserved. The learning curve is real. NixOS introduces new concepts that are unfamiliar to users coming from traditional Linux distributions. The Nix language, used to write system configurations, is a functional programming language with its own syntax and philosophy. In the beginning, it can feel strange and verbose, especially if you are used to editing simple configuration files scattered across the system. However, in 2026, the ecosystem around NixOS has matured significantly. Documentation is better, community examples are more abundant, and many common tasks have been simplified through reusable modules and templates. One of the most powerful aspects of NixOS in 2026 is how it handles services and system configuration. Instead of manually enabling and configuring services, you declare them in your configuration file. Want to enable SSH? You add a few lines. Want to run a web server, a database, or a containerized application? You declare it, specify its options, and NixOS takes care of the rest. The system ensures that all dependencies are present, services are started in the correct order, and configurations are applied consistently. This declarative model dramatically reduces the chance of subtle misconfigurations and makes systems easier to reason about. NixOS also shines when it comes to development environments. In traditional setups, developers often struggle with conflicting dependencies, mismatched library versions, and environment-specific bugs. Nix solves this by allowing you to define development environments that are isolated, reproducible, and independent of the host system. In 2026, tools like NixShell and Flakes make it easy to spin up a development environment with exactly the tools and versions you need without polluting your global system. When you are done, you exit the environment and your system is exactly as it was before. Speaking of Flakes, by 2026 they have become a central part of the Nix ecosystem. Flakes provide a more structured and reproducible way to manage Nix configurations and dependencies. They introduce version locking, better dependency management, and a clearer interface for sharing and reusing configurations. While Flakes were once considered experimental, they are now widely adopted and form the backbone of many modern NixOS setups. For new users, Flakes actually make NixOS easier to understand because they enforce clearer structure and best practices from the start. Security is another area where NixOS quietly excels. Because packages are built in isolation and installed immutably, the attack surface is reduced. It is harder for malicious software to tamper with system components or hide itself in shared directories. Rollbacks also provide a safety net against compromised updates. In server environments, NixOS allows administrators to audit and reproduce system states with a level of precision that is difficult to achieve with traditional systems. In 2026, as security concerns continue to grow, these features are increasingly relevant. One of the most underrated benefits of NixOS is how it changes the way you think about your computer. Instead of seeing your system as a fragile entity that you are afraid to touch, you start to see it as something you can experiment with freely. Want to try a new desktop environment? Add it to your configuration and rebuild. Do not like it? Remove it and rebuild again. Nothing is permanent unless you want it to be. This encourages exploration and learning, and it removes much of the anxiety that comes with system-level changes. Of course, NixOS is not perfect, and it is not for everyone. Some proprietary software is still harder to deal with than on mainstream distributions. The ecosystem, while large, is not as immediately approachable as Ubuntu or Fedora. When something goes wrong, debugging can be different and sometimes more complex, because you are dealing with a declarative system rather than imperative commands. However, by 2026 many of these issues are well understood, and the community has developed patterns and tools to address them. Another important aspect of NixOS in 2026 is its role beyond the desktop. NixOS is increasingly used in cloud infrastructure, CI pipelines, and large-scale deployments. Companies use Nix to ensure that their build environments are consistent across developers and servers. Infrastructure defined with NixOS can be version-controlled, reviewed, and tested like application code. This blurs the line between development and operations and aligns perfectly with modern DevOps and GitOps practices. What makes NixOS truly special is that it is not trying to be everything for everyone. It is opinionated, but its opinions are about correctness, reproducibility, and control. It trusts the user to define what they want and then gets out of the way. In a world where many operating systems are becoming more opaque and automated in ways that reduce user control, NixOS goes in the opposite direction. It gives you more power, but it expects you to take responsibility for that power. By 2026, the idea that NixOS is only for hardcore nerds is slowly fading. More tutorials, better installers, graphical tools, and community-driven configurations have lowered the barrier to entry. You can now install NixOS with sensible defaults and gradually adopt its advanced features at your own pace. You do not have to understand everything on day one. You can start simple and grow into it. If you are a Linux user who loves control, stability, and understanding how your system works, NixOS can feel like coming home. If you are a developer tired of environment issues, it can feel like a revelation. If you are a sysadmin who wants predictable, auditable systems, it can feel like a superpower. And if you are simply curious about what is possible when an operating system is designed around first principles rather than legacy conventions, NixOS is one of the most interesting experiments still actively evolving. So when people ask in 2026 what the most powerful Linux operating system is, the answer is not always the loudest or most popular one. Sometimes it is the quiet, strange one that does things differently and patiently waits for the world to catch up. NixOS has been waiting for a long time, and now more than ever, it might finally be the right time for you to give it a serious look.